Bonjour à tous et à toutes. Bienvenue à ce 9e Open de l'International et tout particulièrement pour ce webinaire intitulé L'agriculture durable dans les pays nordiques. Pour commencer d'abord par une vue macroéconomique de cette zone, j'ai le plaisir d'accueillir Majbritt Leenaert, chargée d'affaires export chez Business France, basée à Copenhague, au Danemark, et Mathilde Heggelund. Alors, j'ai le plaisir d'inviter également pour un focus sur le Danemark et la Norvège, Monsieur Jens Aubert Nielsen du Danish Agriculture and Food Council. Pour la Norvège, Monsieur Anders Strømborg du groupe Yara, qui bien sûr prendront la parole en anglais, donc pour illustrer cette thématique sur l'agriculture durable. Vous pouvez écrire vos questions et remarques dans l'onglet questions à la fin du webinaire. Donc, je n'interromprai pas ce webinaire pour présenter les questions, on le fera à la fin. Et donc, si jamais nous n'avions pas assez de temps pour traiter ces questions-là, je vous adresserai un mail ultérieurement avec toutes les réponses que nos spécialistes auront apportées à vos questions. Donc, merci de votre attention et passez un agréable webinaire. Donc, je laisse la parole à Mathilde.
Merci. Est-ce que tu peux passer à la prochaine slide? Voilà. Donc, effectivement, je suis Mathilde Heggelund-Marie, basée à Oslo pour la Chambre de commerce franco-norvégienne. Donc, pour l'ordre du jour aujourd'hui, nous allons présenter la zone nordique pour une introduction générale avec ma collègue Majbritt et moi-même. Puis une présentation sur l'agriculture du futur au Danemark par le Danish Agriculture and Food Council, représenté par M. Jens Aubert Nielsen, suivi d'une présentation de l'agriculture du futur en Norvège par Yara, représenté par M. Anders Strømborg. Slide suivante. Donc, pour situer un petit peu la zone nordique, nous avons la Suède qui est au centre de la zone, le pays le plus peuplé avec 10,3 millions d'habitants, suivi du Danemark avec 5,8 millions d'habitants, de la Finlande avec 5,5 millions et la Norvège avec 5,4 millions d'habitants. Donc sur la zone nordique, nous avons la Team France Export qui accompagne les entreprises françaises dans leurs projets de développement à l'export. Nous avons 4 bureaux sur la zone nordique, 3 bureaux Business France, un en Suède, un en Finlande qui suit également l'Estonie et un au Danemark qui suit aussi l'Islande. Et en Norvège, nous avons la Chambre de commerce franco-norvégienne qui est le représentant de la Team France Export également. Slide suivante. Donc les pays nordiques, c'est une zone avec une économie très stable et saine. C'est la 11e économie mondiale, donc au total avec une population de 27 millions d'habitants. Donc c'est une zone non négligeable pour l'export notamment, avec des économies donc très stables et un environnement des affaires qui est très favorable, tous notés à 1. Et la langue des affaires qui est l'anglais, qui favorise également les affaires sur ces pays. Donc, étant des économies saines, la reprise suite à la crise sanitaire va être assez rapide. Voilà. Donc, je vais passer la parole à ma collègue Majbritt Leenaert.
Merci Mathilde. Donc, je suis Majbritt Leenaert depuis le bureau de Business France à Copenhague. Enchantée d'être là aujourd'hui avec vous. En amont des témoignages de nos 2 experts nordiques, je vais essayer de vous présenter les très grandes lignes du secteur agricole sur notre zone nordique. Tout d'abord, ce qu'il faut remarquer, que c'est pour les 4 pays nordiques, le secteur agroalimentaire est un secteur qui est puissant, qui est innovant et qui est un pilier de l'économie de nos 3 pays. C'est un secteur aussi qui est caractérisé par la présence de très grands acteurs, de grandes coopératives. Pour vous citer quelques exemples, on peut parler de Arla Foods, que vous connaissez certains, ou de Tine en Norvège aussi. Ce sont des coopératives dans le lait. Dans la viande, on peut citer Danish Crown ou Norturin. Les deux sont des coopératives également. Finalement, ce qu'il faut aussi, on peut remonter, Mathilde. Voilà. Ce qu'il faut remarquer aussi, c'est que le secteur agricole dans les pays nordiques est très actif à l'exportation. Nous avons des acteurs qui sont sur la scène internationale et qui sont extrêmement exportateurs de leur production. Pour vous donner un exemple avec Danish Crown, qui est donc la coopérative danoise active dans la viande et qui exporte autour de 90% de sa production sur plus d'une centaine de pays dans le monde entier. Et on peut passer le slide suivant. Sur ce topo, en fait, un petit tableau pour vous montrer les secteurs clés dans le secteur agroalimentaire dans nos 4 pays. Ce n'est évidemment pas une liste qui est exhaustive, hein, mais ça vous laisse néanmoins des grandes lignes et une idée des secteurs clés dans nos 4 pays. Tout d'abord, l'élevage, que ce soit dans le lait ou dans la viande qu'on retrouve sur les 4 pays. Ensuite, la production végétale et de céréales également. Et puis, particulièrement pour la Finlande, la Suède et la Norvège, qui sont des pays avec de vastes forêts, on a une forte activité de sylviculture également. Et puis, pour finir, pêche et aquaculture, mais cela particulièrement pour le Danemark et pour la Norvège. Alors, on va voir tout cela, vraiment le sujet du cœur avec nos 2 témoins, mais en tout cas, ce qu'on peut dire pour résumer les grandes lignes, c'est que dans les 4 pays nordiques, nous avons des secteurs agroalimentaires qui sont extrêmement engagés, qui sont très avancés pour tout ce qui concerne le climat et la durabilité, mais aussi le bien-être animal qui est un sujet important ici. Les Nordiques sont ambitieux. Il y a des projets qui sont déjà en cours et qui visent, avec des projets différents dans chacun des pays évidemment, mais qui visent une production agroalimentaire de la ferme à l'assiette qui se veut de plus en plus neutre, climatiquement neutre dans les années à venir. Et justement, pour illustrer ces ambitions des Nordiques, nous avons donc le grand plaisir d'accueillir avec nous aujourd'hui 2 experts de nos 2 pays. Nous avons Jens Hauber Nielsen avec nous depuis le Danemark et Anders Stromberg depuis la Norvège. On va donc du coup commencer par le témoignage de Jens qui nous rejoint depuis Danish Agriculture and Food Council, qui est une association danoise professionnelle qui vient rejoindre en fait tous les acteurs dans le secteur agroalimentaire ici dans le pays. Jens va justement nous expliquer comment le secteur ici au Danemark se veut climatiquement neutre sur toute la chaîne d'ici 2050. And I am, Jens, very happy to pass you the words, and the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Majbritt, and thank you for having me here today. Yeah, next slide. So my name is Jens Hauber Nielsen from the Danish Agriculture and Food Council. Just a short introduction here to our organization. We are a business organization representing the whole chain, from farmers to food processors. And you can kind of split our work into 4, like this slide shows. We do political advocacy. The top left corner is the Danish Parliament, symbolizing the work we do to secure the best possible framework for our agricultural and food industry. We do advising of farmers and industry members. We do this on behalf of SEGES, which is part of the organization. SEGES is our knowledge and research institution. They do innovation and they both politically and economically to benefit the profession. And this is the building you see in the right corner. We do global market access and promotion. We are an export nation. I believe it's 2/3 of our production that we export. So securing market access and promoting agricultural food is a huge part of our work as well. And of course, the last image also connects to SEGES. Like I said, it's our research institution that do individual, but also partnerships with universities in order to secure new knowledge for the sector. So this was a brief introduction to the organization. And next we will talk about the topic today, climate neutrality 2050. We set out this vision for our organization, reflecting back on our members, both farmers and industry, a vision to be climate neutral in 2050, meaning that the sector cannot emit more greenhouse gases than we absorb. This was a vision formulated and presented to the public in the spring 2019, just a month before we had the general election. And I must say it was a genius timing. I cannot take credit for that, but it really was because in the election, we as an organization and the industry in general were highlighted as front runners and acting on this very important agenda. Climate and sustainability was one of the most important topics of the election. So also showing from the industry side that we are ready to commit to the public, to the consumers and politicians, and to work together on this agenda was very beneficial in the election, but also since then, because of course this is something that requires partnerships in both public and private. To some, it can of course seem like big words and perhaps easy here. This was in 2019 to talk about climate neutrality in 2050 because it's quite far away, and we also have to admit we don't know how to get there yet. We know some of the way, but we are also depending on future technologies and of course also funding and partnerships from the public to get us to go all the way. So why tie ourselves to this vision is of course to show commitment to the whole society, but also internally regarding priorities in the organization and between farmers and companies. Some of the very big companies, of course, they are very aware of this agenda themselves, and they do a lot on this. I know, Majbritt, you mentioned Arla Foods and Danish Crown in the beginning, and these are some of our members that are very strong on the agenda themselves. But we of course also have smaller members that perhaps need more inspiration and collaboration on this agenda. To what can they do? And to mention some, I will get into this also later on. But just some examples is of course research in these taking out lowland soils that we know there are a huge potential to reducing our greenhouse gases. Also, new technology that can reduce emission from pig pens and cow sheds are some of the areas where we do research right now. And we like to, in Denmark, we like to highlight our knowledge and also experience within the wind energy sector. We did a lot of public investments in this sector 20 and 30 years back, and we are pinpointing to that example to our sector, and that we need the same commitment from the public, from the government, to create a new adventure, you can say. Please, 2 slides back. Sorry, next. This one. And just the public-private partnerships and commitment from the public leads me to the next slide that I will talk about. That's the political agricultural reforms that we are also depending on. Some of you might know that just a couple of weeks ago, the Common Agricultural Policy, the CAP, from the EU, we had a new deal from 2023 to 2027. They have been negotiating for 3 years, and this is also very important to take in mind when we talk about initiatives in EU and also in Denmark, because this sets the framework, a lot of our financial framework to what we can do. And here we have a new introduction to eco schemes. This also changes the aid for the farmers, the direct payments. And these are new 1-year green initiatives for 25% of the direct payments that has to go to these initiatives. And this is also talking into, or you can say, part of this same agenda in towards reaching climate neutrality 2050, which since then has also been a vision for the European Union. So this is something that will affect the next steps in the future. And right now, at the moment, we also have national reform negotiations in Denmark, apart from the CAP. This also has a spillover, as some of the framework is, of course, affecting what we can do in Denmark. But this is political negotiations from funding for new technology, funding for taking out these lowland soils. From our side, we are very concerned that the funding cannot come directly from the EU, because that's we have this saying, feeding the dog with its own tail. That would be the case if we take the farmers' direct payments and actually fund, for example, taking out his own lowland soils or her lowland soils. So we have a massive work to do also in the design of these eco schemes, because 25% is a very big share of your support, and we need to secure some designs that most farmers can see themselves commit to, and they can actually do out on the farm. So a lot is moving on the agenda right now, both politically and also the vision for longer terms. Yeah, I think we can move to next slide. So I've also taken with some actions from the field, because, and this was of course supposed to be short. We only have 10 minutes to talk about neutrality in 2050. So please see this as a short introduction, and then Majbritt, you are also welcome to share my contact information if you want to know more about the work and the vision here at the Danish Agriculture and Food Council. I think it's important to also take some action from fields today, what is also happening. And here I'll also bring an example from Arla Foods, who have started this individual climate check on each farm. Now I noted the number because it's on 7,986 farmers, they are cooperative. They have each answered more than 200 questions regarding sustainability and initiatives on their farm. And then you can then in April, they presented this huge data set with feed, uses of feed, uses of energy, milk yield, fertilizers, etc. And then each farmer can see, okay, where is it possible for me to adjust? Are there something to do on the feed? Are there something to do on the fertilizer? What can I do? And then Arla, in cooperation with their owners, they can adjust. They have this saying that what gets measured gets done, and I think that's very important in this agenda, because it's otherwise we do risk pushing it ahead to 2050. There's a long way to go, but if we measure it and take these each year or each second or 2 years apart or so on, it's much easier to adjust on the way. And I think it's a great example, these individual climate checks. We also see new technologies such as farm droids. Both public and private investments are going into these. We have some self-steering robots that can running on solar power, used for sowing and weeding. Right now, the cost is very high, and so it's very much on short scale. But it's also to bring out some examples that we of course need to scale in a much bigger perspective. We have SEGES, which I mentioned in the beginning, our research institution doing research on CO2 extractor hoods that can be placed in stables, and through a filter with bacteria, you can actually break down the methane from the cows. Also, super interesting experiments and research projects that has potential for bigger scale. We see feed additives that can also reduce cows' methane leach, and these are the kind of examples that we need to put more investment and learn much more about. So yeah, and lastly, I would have also put on this, what about the producers and the consumers, because that's of course also very important. And what's this? How do they look at this agenda and the work being carried out? And we have done some consumer analysis, and 95% of the Danish consumers in our analysis says that they are ready, or they already have changed their habits to a more sustainable way. 65% answers that they think about sustainability when they do their grocery shopping. However, this is in general, and then if you ask them, did you think about it when you bought your dinner or lunch yesterday? Only 50% said they thought about sustainability. So it also shows that there are some way from what we want to do and what we actually still do in practical when we do our lunch or dinner. But it has increased heavily over the last couple of years. So that's very positive. And also asked the consumers, who do they believe are the biggest drivers for this agenda? They actually asked themselves, the consumers themselves, and the politicians. Yeah, also very interesting. And lastly, I also put out the producers. What do they think? And this is of course also in general. And but what we experience is that the members, the farmers, are very keen on delivering on this agenda as well. They have an interest in producing the food products that the consumers are demanding. But of course, it has to be done in a way, and we have to shift in a more sustainable direction, in a pace, and with the public financing as well, that secures also the economically sustainability at the farmer level. So I think this is a huge quest for collaboration from farmer to producer, and we need to secure these partnerships all the way. And we also have a role in that, and that's what we've been trying to do also with this vision for climate neutrality. I think that was actually what I had planned. I don't know if I'm on time, or if you have any.
Perfect, Mr. Nielsen. You are on time. Thank you very much for all these details. Maintenant, j'ai le plaisir d'accueillir donc Monsieur Anders Stromborg du groupe Yara, qui va nous exposer sa vision aussi de l'agriculture durable en Norvège. À vous, Monsieur Stromborg.
Thanks a lot. Thank you very much for inviting me. First, just a few words about Yara. We are first and foremost known for producing plant nutrition fertilizers for the global agriculture. Also, the worth mention, we are also supplying feed additives like feed phosphates and also some other additives as well. But mainly, I will focus on the agriculture part and the plant nutrition. Well, already said, Norway is probably not the biggest agriculture country in Europe. Approximately 3% is arable land. And if you are familiar with Norway, we are producing agriculture products within a range of 2,000 kilometers from south to north. And there's a huge climatic difference between the different regions. Some agriculture, some farms are situated above the Arctic Circle, and hence the seasons are quite short. So it's a long country. It's a lot of forest. It's a lot of mountains, and I would say the average farm is some 20-30 hectares in average. But we have agriculture all over the country, more or less. Please move on. When talking about sustainable agriculture, we normally split into, I would say, the environmental impact of the agriculture, which is probably at least we have been working in reducing the environmental impact of overnutrition. And as you can see from back in the 80s, the use of nitrogen has been quite stable, despite improved yield and improved use and distribution, whereas the Norwegian agriculture has been able to decrease the use of potassium and phosphorus over the last years. And when talking about sustainable agriculture going forward, it's much more talk about the climatic effects. So if you enter into the next slide, the Norwegian agriculture has entered into agreement with the government, where the aim is to cut 5 million tons CO2 equivalents by 2030. And I guess this picture more or less goes for agriculture globally, but it's focusing on methane emissions. Metabolism from cattle has been mentioned. Also the use of organic fertilizers and use of manure. N2O emissions from the use of organic fertilizers and in-field emissions are very much in focus. I also have to mention that Yara has 2 fertilizer plants in Norway, and of course the impact of improving the fertilizer production as such is also very important in order to reduce the N2O emissions and also the CO2 emissions. Yes, please. Also, the Norwegian agriculture at least tries to have a holistic approach to this process, and that's the reason why fertilizer production is also very valid, because fertilizer production has a significant impact on the overall emissions and the overall footprint from the agriculture. We also focus a lot on what's going on in field, because optimal use, optimal distribution, and also taking care of choosing the correct nutrition for the correct crops in the different regions is also very important in order to reduce in-field emissions. And also we have within agriculture, or within forestry at least, we have the possibility to capture CO2 as well. So it's important when discussing these issues to have a holistic approach to the overall impact of what we're doing. Yes, please. We are mainly following different routes for improvement. One of them is to use low carbon and fertilizers, and then also to optimize the user efficiency of nitrogen, and of course also phosphorus and potassium. But these are routes that are our main concern and in focus in the Norwegian agriculture these days. And in order to optimize in-field emissions, we really have to be selective when we are choosing fertilizers. As mentioned, Norway has a rather cold climate. We have to use very efficient fertilizers in order for the plants to make it till the end before the season is over. And hence there's a lot of focusing on the selection of fertilizers to be used. And hence we also have very crop specific and very balanced crop nutrition programs going on. And then at the end of that, we are also increasingly utilizing new tools, utilizing satellite technology to monitor the biomass development, splitting applications, etc. So this is the main focus at the current stage. Yes, please. I would say also quite unique. We have a very specific use of fertilizers. Norway is an NPK market. 80% of the fertilizers used are highly water-soluble products. Based on what I just said, we have a very short period of growth. The nutrition has to be balanced and very efficient, and that is the reason why in Norway is what you could address or could call NPK market, as opposed to a lot of other agriculture markets throughout Europe. Yes. There has also been quite an evolution when it comes to nitrogen management. 10, 15, 20 years back, mainly general advice was used. And then we are increasingly splitting application throughout the season. We are taking new technology and new tools into use, and in order to not use more than what is necessary for the different crops to develop, and this is kind of making the agriculture more and more advanced and increasing yield at the same time, kind of not growing the input factors like the fertilizers and the plant nutrition inputs. Yes, please. Yeah, this is just an example where we are combining agronomy with satellite technology in order to improve efficiency in field and also improve yields. So there is no big contradiction between improving yields and reducing overall footprint if the right toolbox is being used. Yes, I have to say a few words about mineral fertilizer production because it can and it will have a rather huge impact on the overall footprint of the agriculture if we are able to reduce the dependency on fossil energy sources. So the first step of this, I would say that the cycle is that at factory gate, approximately 30% of the total footprint of a cereal grain production is coming from the fertilizer production itself. And by improving a fertilizer production, we also have a significant opportunity to improve the overall footprint of the whole industry. Yes. Yara has over the years developed a very specific catalyst technology that has been enabling us to reduce the footprint by 45% since 2005. And that technology is now also being used by all fertilizer producers throughout Europe. So this is not a Yara specific technology anymore, but it has been developed within Yara and it has been patented and it is now being used all over Europe. And that has kind of made a huge impact over the last 15 years. Further ahead, we are now moving into developing production of green ammonia. And that is actually replacing the fossil-free energy sources by electricity, renewable energy. And that is the next leap and probably also the future for this industry going forward. Yes. This is just an example. This is the catalyst technology that has been introduced in fertilizer production. Yes. This is an illustration of what green fertilizers is all about. If we are able to replace the natural gas, the fossil gas, by electricity coming from wind, waves, solar energy, we are actually able to reduce the CO2 footprint at factory gate by some 60 to 70%. And that will have a huge impact if you have a look at the overall CO2 footprint of all products coming out of agriculture going forward. Yes. This is an example from a malting barley production, where you actually can see how the different stages are impacting the overall CO2 footprint of the output in the other end. So the fertilizer production is actually contributing approximately 30% of the overall emissions. Improving that will have a significant impact. That also goes for in-field emissions, where we have to continue improving input factors, agronomy, choose of crops, choose of fertilizers, etc., to really make a difference going forward. Yes. Thanks. I think that was very brief, a big topic in a handful of minutes. Hopefully, gave you some ideas about what is going on in Norway.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Tromberg, for this too short presentation. For sure, unfortunately, we don't have time enough to speak more about this topic. So I will give again maybe yes, we stop now the webinar in French again. Je vous remercie à tous les quatre, pour vos interventions. Et je remercie également tous les participants qui ont bien voulu nous écouter. Toute information complémentaire pourrait vous être diffusée ultérieurement, bien sûr, sans aucun problème. Je n'ai pas de questions, no question at this moment. Si jamais vous souhaitiez nous en poser plus tard, n'hésitez pas à me contacter et je vous ferai parvenir les réponses les plus détaillées possibles rapidement. Merci à tous.